What is Anzac Day? Anzac Day is held on the 25th of April and is a public holiday in all of Australia and New Zealand. It is a day to commemorate all those who fought and lost their lives in armed conflict throughout Australia's history. Anzac Day has a long and complicated history, and has often been marred by controversy. So how did a day simply about commemorating the dead become a subject of controversy? The history of Anzac Day. Anzac stands for Australian and New Zealand Army Corps. This was a group of soldiers sent to serve the Allied cause during World War I. The Anzacs landed on the Gallipoli Peninsula on the 25th of April, 1915. The goal was to capture the peninsula to open the way to the Black Sea for the Allied navies, and capture Constantinople, the capital of the Ottoman Empire. This was expected to be a brief campaign, but dragged on for 8 months. At the end of 1915, Allied forces were evacuated, after both sides suffered heavy casualties. The Allied deaths totaled over 56,000, including 8,709 from Australia, and 2,721 from New Zealand. History in action. At the time of the outbreak of war, in 1914, Australia had only been a federated nation for 13 years. Thus, the Anzac Campaign was not merely another conflict. As it may have been to an older nation, it was seen as a formative moment in constructing Australia's national identity. Australians will now refer back to the Anzac Campaign as a day that enshrined Australian values, mateship, perseverance, and courage. Over the years there has been a creation of the Anzac legend, which exemplifies an image of heroism. This has led to controversy, with some criticising the way Anzac Day can glorify war and conflict, rather than being a day to reflect on the destruction of war and the loss of life. How it is commemorated. Anzac Day is commemorated with dawn services across the country. Dawn was often the time soldiers had to rise for battle, as this was seen as the ideal time to begin conflict. A national ceremony is held at the Australian War Memorial in Canberra, starting at 10:30 a.m. This includes the commemorative address, the laying of wreaths, singing of hymns, the sounding of the last post, observance of 1 minute's silence, and the playing of the national anthems of Australia and New Zealand. Ex-servicemen and women meet to take part in marches in cities across the country. After the memorials, families often place red poppies beside the name of relatives on the memorial's roll of honour, as they do after Remembrance Day services. Anzac Day during COVID. During 2020, traditional Anzac Day services could not go ahead due to widespread lockdowns. As a result, people stood in front of their driveways to commemorate the service driveway at dawn. This year, since Australia has managed to contain COVID for the most part, services will still go ahead, although with restrictions on the number of people allowed in certain areas. It is expected many Australians will continue to commemorate the day whilst at home. Customs. After the dawn services, there is a tradition of taking the gunfire breakfast coffee with rum. This is the breakfast taken by many soldiers before facing battle. Anzac biscuits will also appear in supermarkets around this date. These biscuits are similar to the ones family members sent to their relatives and loved ones serving overseas. Any food sent had to be resistant to spoilage but full of nutrition. Thus, the Anzac biscuits are made from rolled oats, sugar, flour, coconut, and butter. Legacy. The initial Anzac Day was seen to be formative in Australia's identity as a nation distinct from Britain. However, this has been contested by many people, such as former Prime Minister Paul Keating. Anzac Day lost popularity throughout the 20th century. Many of the traditions we have today were instilled during the mid-1930s, however the day was at its least popular during the 60s when many veterans used the day to condemn warfare, having served in the brutal and ongoing conflict in Vietnam. On the 25th of April, 1990, Bob Hawke became the first Australian politician to visit Gallipoli, and decided the government would pay for Anzac veterans to visit Gallipoli for the 75th anniversary of the Dawn landing. This was instrumental in reviving the popularity of Anzac Day. Efforts have been made to ensure Anzac Day commemorates all those who served in Australian war efforts, including women, immigrants, and Indigenous Australians. Indigenous Australians and Anzac Day. The Australian Defence Force did not record the cultural background of members until recently, so it's difficult to know exactly how many Indigenous Australians contributed to the various conflicts Australia has partaken in. In the early 1900s, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people were not allowed to join the army and so had to lie to sign up. Recent efforts to highlight the role of Indigenous Australians in Australian history have revealed that over 1,000 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people served in World War I, including 70 at Gallipoli. Additionally, in 2011 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people made up 1.7% of the Australian Army. To put this into context, the estimated percentage of the Australian population who are of Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander descent is 3.3%. References. Mayor Woe would like to thank the volunteers who contributed to this presentation. Contents: Donna Burrows. Multimedia: Marit DeLang. We are fully run by volunteers from around Australia. We are looking for volunteers who can help us with a variety of tasks. We love to hear from you. Contact us on ogonya2002@hotmail.com.